Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome to Satsang. This day before winter solstice. Nice to see you all again, as always. Here in the northern hemisphere, we're having the return of the light. I think today or tomorrow is the shortest day of the year, but then the days begin to lengthen again. This week we have many celebrations, spiritual and religious, around the world. The end of Hanukkah, Neem Crowley Baba, Jayanti on Tuesday, Bhagavan Ramana Jayanti coming up, Christ Jayanti, the end of the week. So it's a full time of year. So even though it's a dark time of year in terms of the natural cycles of light and dark, at least in the northern hemisphere, there's nonetheless a lot of light pouring into the world. So open your heart to receive this light. The consciousness which you are is that which illuminates all of this. Without yourself as that which is aware, none of this is knowable. So we celebrate this in so many ways throughout the year, day by day. The light of your own being increasing day by day. Showering the world with love. The path of satsang, it's often forgotten, is really the journey from the mind which is trying to understand everything and figure everything out. The journey to the heart. In the heart, everything is known. Often, in our practice, our effort leads us to a place where we experience some sense of dryness because we are trying so hard to understand this question, who am I? When this happens, it's just an indicator that we've forgotten that satsang is the journey from the mind to the heart. From the place of knowledge, which occurs in the mind, to the place of knowing, which is the natural state of being in the heart. So I encourage you to remind yourself from time to time that it's only when you seem to be walking some path that this sense of dryness can occur. Because in truth, there is no path. The fruition of your search results in the recognition that there only ever was the heart, that the mind, the search for knowledge, never existed. The heart is all there ever was, and you are that. So while the mind is telling you that you have more to know, more to learn, more to grow, don't forget to fall into the heart, into the bliss of your own being, to quiet the mind and open the heart, to come to the end of your seeking, to know yourself as that which is aware, awake, unborn, undying, as that which is ever here, as being, consciousness, and bliss. All right, who would like to start today? Who has something they'd like to talk about today?
Rishiji,
Hello, Atmavidya.
thank you so much for offering this opportunity to be with you. And I also feel to share that even after the meetings, it's just such a deep presence. So I always feel you in the heart and that you keep guiding us, that there's also deepening happening. And just thank you for this.
Yes,
Um,
so very welcome.
yes, I might need some guidance
Mm.
about the pain, like if there's some physical or emotional pain, at times it is difficult to just be aware and not to react in any way. I was just wondering if there's a possibility to, like, there's a wish from the mind that it goes away,
Mm-hmm.
but just to remain aware in this moment and always to keep reminding oneself it's just passing, like no matter what is happening on the physical or emotional level, just to let it pass. So this tendency not to identify it, it seems at times challenging.
Yes.
I was just wondering if it's a question also of vigilance to see it when it comes, and then immediately not to give too much energy to it, or if it comes also with time, that it just immediately it is seen it's not me and it's passing, and not to comment in any way.
The times when the sadhana is difficult are often associated with this kind of pain, physical, emotional, and so on. For a long time, as we notice our experience, it can seem almost impossible to withdraw our attention from the physical pain or the emotional pain in the heart. When this is happening, this is really the indicator that there is no way out other than to withdraw attention from the I. If we withdraw attention from the I who is experiencing this, in other words, if we withdraw attention from the experience itself and the identification of it with it, when the possibility arises that we can draw this attention back from the pain in the body or the mind. And this does take some effort. I know you've experienced this, Atma. But it's almost as though we're asking ourselves to pull attention back from the pain itself in the body and so on, and turn it back toward that which is aware. When we do this, we're really offering ourselves the only true way out, or the way to transcend the body mind complex. Our tendency is to want to solve this situation, find the magic pill, find the thought that will cause this emotional difficulty to drop, and so on. But experience tells us, doesn't it, that no matter how much we try to avoid, um, we're unsuccessful, that somehow pain keeps rising, difficulty keeps rising, challenges keep rising, that somehow this is the nature of the experience that we all live as human beings. So we've seen over and over that while we might find some way to momentarily forget about the difficulty or stop feeling the pain, we know that it will only be temporary. So we have to look directly at the way in which we suffer over the experiences of body and mind so that we can come to understand that we are before whatever we are experiencing. And so, this is why I say we have to take the attention and gently turn it back toward the awareness itself. To do this is to actually use the faculty of mind, which is kind of interesting. All of us have had the experience of having one experience be pushed out of the way quite quickly by another experience. This is because the natural structure of the mind really doesn't allow us, despite what contemporary thinking tells us about multitasking, the mind really doesn't multitask. It can move very, very quickly from one object to another and give the appearance of multitasking. But in fact, if we look very closely when we're sitting quietly, observing our own mind, just being aware, we can notice that the mind really only has the capacity to focus on one thing at a time. So when there's a difficulty present, when there's pain present, this ability to really only focus on one thing at a time becomes a limiting factor. In other words, it draws our attention deeply into that object or into that pain, into that kind of suffering that we're experiencing at that moment. But because we know the mind is only capable of really keeping focus on one object at a time, though it can move very quickly, what we do as sadhaks, as practitioners, is we become more and more adept at pulling attention away from the object that's giving us the difficulty at that moment and placing it on something else. Now, this is not mere positive thinking. In other words, I'm not saying we just pull the attention away and we do something that makes us feel better. This also is this can happen, but it's also a very limiting kind of experience. The only way we'll be freed from the experience of our own suffering is to realize that which is before the suffering, that which makes it possible to know in some way this is difficult, this is painful. There is something which knows that, but isn't affected by it. So, this is why we take this faculty of the ability of mind to focus, but now we become very conscious about where is that attention going to go. In order for this to happen, in some way, I can say you have to let go of your interest in the pain. This is difficult. You have to let go of your interest in your own suffering. But with practice, this works. So we turn away from the difficulty, the pain, whether it's a physical pain in our body or an emotional pain. We don't do this because we're avoiding something, but rather because we want to use the object which is present in order to ask this question: who or what is aware of this experience? And we do this because the sages have said to do so will free us from this connection. It will sever this connection so that the body and mind are free to do what the body and mind do, just as part of their natural experience. But I, as the self, am also free to choose. So we keep noticing that this is what's present, but then we ask the question, what is aware of this? This begins to withdraw the attention from that difficulty, give us some relief, even if it's only momentary. The difference between that and doing and positive thinking, say, is that over time, the inquiry, the turning away from the difficulty, away from the object, and turning back toward the self. This is the stick that's used to turn a fire. The fire keeps blazing, but eventually it runs out of fuel, and then it consumes the stick, which we're using to stir the fire. This is the purpose of inquiry. We use this practice, this turning away. So it's not just saying, not this, not this, not this. That's the temporary solution, and it works very well. So we use it over and over. Not this, not this, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this, 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 not this. This just keeps going on. But eventually this stick will be consumed by the fire. This is the fire of inquiry, because we cannot stop there. This is not, we can stop there. The mind can say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of this. This doesn't work. This is what the mind's dialogue will be. Oh, this isn't working. I'm still feeling this difficulty. There's still this emotional pain. There's still this physical pain. So then we give up and we surrender once again into the illusion that we are the object it's themselves, right? We are the pain. We are the suffering of the heart, in the mind, in the body. We surrender into that again. We give up. But if we don't give up, then what happens is that when this stick of inquiry is consumed, what is left is the self. And so we continue like this. Bhagavan used to say, as many times as the I arises, know that you are not that, by asking the question, who is this I? Meaning, who is identified with this experience, so that we come to see that the experiences happen. They seem to happen continuously for a very long time. But we are looking for the true experiencer. And to do this, we just allow the experiencing to go on without the belief that I am that experience.
If I just may ask, if there was a feeling that the more there's this detachment and there's less identification with the body, that this pain will not be that intense. So it's an indication that if there is a lot of identification in some way, then the feeling of pain is more intense. But the more we just become aware, then it doesn't affect us that much.
Yes, it's like this. But also, I want to encourage you, Atma, don't use the degree or the level, let's say, or the intensity of pain in the body or mind to judge the to judge yourself and to say, because the intensity of pain is high or low, this says something about my recognition of my own nature. Because there's this tendency also to think that because we are experiencing an intense moment or period of difficulty or pain in our life, that this is somehow a measure of our recognition, I am the self. And this is just not true. So be very cautious if you are experiencing pain in this moment, in the body or the mind, about also believing this story that somehow this is an indicator of your state of realization. It is true that one's reactivity, let's say, or association with physical pain, as an example, diminishes with practice of the inquiry. The pain itself in the body, however, may not. You know, every body is eventually going to break down, and this process can be quite difficult and quite painful. So, this is just inevitable. But to gauge one's awakened state based on how much one is experiencing pain, this is inaccurate. This was shown very clearly by many sages, but certainly by Bhagavan Ramana. As his body became more and more sick and he was dying of cancer, the doctors would say, they often said they couldn't understand how it was he could sit all day long on his tucket, because they knew from experience with other patients how much pain he must be in as the cancer ravaged his shoulder and his body. But he didn't move and he didn't flinch. He knew, they knew, that he was in great pain, that he must be. This is just the nature of the body when it's deteriorating. Yet he never showed that at all. He was always peaceful and calm and radiant because he had severed the knot, it's called the granthi, the knot of identification with the idea, I am the body. And this severing for him was complete. And so he went throughout the last weeks and months of his life without treatment. There was some treatment that occurred before because the devotees were insisting on it, and he said, I will do that because you want me to. But eventually he said no more, and he just continued to do what he did every day: practice, be with devotees, shine light and radiance into the world until the body expired. So, this is what can be possible for us as we become less and less enamored of our own suffering, less and less interested in it, and more interested in the recognition of the self. So just be careful. Because you have pain and difficulty in your life does not indicate anything about your degree of awareness or awakening. Just be careful about that particular trap. you will live out the parabdha karma of this body, whether you are asleep or awake. So I encourage you to wake up and then let the parabdha karma of this body have its way with you. That's it. The parabdha karma of this body doesn't say anything about who you are. Just keep moving into the heart. Let the world, let the body, let the mind be as they are. The Buddha said, to be born is to experience suffering, to experience dying, old age, sickness, and death. He said, this is the natural state, the natural consequence of being born. But where you have a choice is whether you suffer over your suffering. And that liberation is the recognition I am not the body. The body's journey is the body's journey. Your journey is the journey from mind to heart.
Rishi,
Hello, Marie.
I got myself the other day how there is that desire to for certain sensation uh, during meditation, like peace.
Mm-hmm.
The and quiet and and then the question came in that those are still sensations, and I'm not that. So how to avoid that trap? Not to get caught in things being a certain way, and this time of quiet being a certain way, or
Yes,
even not being time of quiet.
yes,
That it's not about anything being anyway. It's just about
yes.
being ephemeral.
Mhm.
But it's so easy to desire that because it's so pleasurable.
Yes. Yes, and I've said this before, but it's always good to have this reminder that of the two sides of the duality of pleasure and pain, or pleasant and unpleasant, it's often the pleasant, which is the more challenging experience from the perspective of awakening to what is, because of exactly what you've said. One of the most difficult things about falling into the heart is that it is so pleasurable. The sense of peace and the sense of mm, physical rest and relaxation and pleasure that can come and does come can cause us to really do some weird things. In other words, it can cause us to set up our practice. Well, I must do it at this hour. I must sit in this way. I have to have this foot over here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to recreate the experience of falling deeply into being. But we're mistaking that falling into as being under our control.
Mm.
That we somehow, by repeating the right words over and over, or singing the right song over and over, or sitting in the correct position over and over, or at the same time every day, whatever it is, you know how our minds work. Oh, I have to have my special shawl. Oh, I'm not, oh, my cushion is in the other room. I have to get up and go get that. Is it, because I'm not going to wake up without my special cushion or my special shawl or my beads, or without doing a certain kind of ceremony. All of these things are very helpful. Please don't misunderstand me but they're helpful for only one reason. They help to prepare the mind for turning inward. So sometimes, a little ritual, a little of this, a little of that. This is very good. You all know this because you've seen on this screen, you've seen me do puja with Bhagavan's picture and offer incense and all of this. So this is very helpful in terms of centering the mind and getting us prepared for this opportunity to turn from there to there and to begin to go deep within. So this can be very helpful. The mistake is if we think that by doing these things, the consequence of that is going to be awakening. The reason that this is not true is that you are already awake. You are already here now. So by doing some ceremony, by preparing in some way, what we are doing is agreeing to drop everything that stands in the way of the recognition that you
Mm.
are that. So it's helpful to remember throughout the day that you are already awake, and that whatever comes to you in your practice, these moments of joy and bliss and pleasure, they are existent or existing within you at all times. The reason they step to the fore in a moment of quiet or a moment of silence is because you've dropped everything else which ordinarily contracts the space. and you've stepped back into the heart of your own being. You've stepped back into that which is already here. The mind can become very enamored of these places of pleasure and bliss and joy, thinking that somehow they are coming from that place rather than from a pre existing condition, if you will. So, yes, always remember that whether the object you are working with at this moment or experiencing at this moment is an object which has has a foundation in something that looks like pain, or whether it has a foundation in something that looks like bliss, is really of no consequence. Eventually, you have to come to the place which you came to the other day, which is to realize that before this was, I am. So continue, Marie, in this same direction with this recognition that before this was, I am. And then you won't become trapped in this pursuit of pleasure or this rejection of pain. You'll allow what is to be as it is, and you will continue to remain as you are, as being, consciousness, and bliss.
Thank you, Rishi. Yeah, I can see that mind can come in and get into describing and naming things. And
Yes, but then it can also, yes, and then it can also come in as this moment that you had, which says, oh, I see now. I'm just being, I'm just grasping at this pleasure. You see, there's an innate wisdom which is there in the mind, in the heart, actually, which rises into the mind and informs us when we become quiet, when we become still. We experience this joy, this inner peace. And it's in that moment that this recognition, this realization, this insight which you had rises. And it doesn't rise from a book, it doesn't rise from a video, it doesn't rise from something we learned. It rises out of what we are and says, oh, I see that now. I have this expectation. I'm still seeking this pleasure. When this pleasure is here, I'm still grabbing at it. I'm still wanting my practice or my, my sadhana to result in this, when in fact, this is just the opposite of that. And when you begin to see that this is just the opposite of that, you lose interest in both this and that. And then you remain as you are. Become interested in just this experience of pure joy as awareness itself. without the need for this or that. Then this or that can come and go. This is not a problem, right? This is just the parabdha karma of the body and mind. This and that can come and go, but I remain as I am. And this may even include, I have this, there suddenly is this recognition, oh, I'm grasping, I'm clinging at this pleasure. Or there's this recognition, oh, I'm resisting this pain, or I'm wanting to get rid of this, or I'm looking, that can still arise, because this is the momentum of conditioning. But once you've had this moment of insight, then the question becomes, what now then? Okay, I see this is very pleasurable. It feels pleasurable in the body. The mind is calm, peaceful. Joy is here. Now what? Is this the limit of who I am, or is there something else? Don't be afraid to lose interest. Even without any interest, you will still be aware, and you might actually be happy. Let interest take care of itself without your decision or your judgment or your opinion that this is better than that. When I no longer make any decisions or have any opinion or decide that this is better than that, I don't fall into sleepiness or torpor. I fall into what is and free myself from all this decision making. Now I am free to enjoy the sunshine, to enjoy the rain, to enjoy the noise, to enjoy the silence. So encourage yourself to just let go of opinions, of judgments, and slowly, slowly begin to know that the happiness which you are is always here. And the conditions will come and go. And sometimes the conditions will be difficult, even for a long period of time. But the more you turn and rest in your own natural awareness, the easier it becomes to simply watch witness, observe as things come and go in the body, in the mind, in the world. You never had any control over them anyway. So now free yourself from them. Let yourself dance in the world. Let the world dance in you. You are free of all of that. All right, does anyone else have anything? Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Vandinan Mrityor Mukshiyamamrita Swaha Bhuva Bhu Om Sat Jung Hum Om. Namaste. Much love.
Thank you.